protected from ignorant and meddlesome outsiders, namely the population. We just add a personal note on that. I came down here this afternoon by the Acela, the jewel and the crown of new high-speed railroad technology. The first time I came from Boston to New York was 60 years ago, and there was improvement since then. It was 5 minutes faster today than it was 60 years ago. While state corporate power was vigorously promoting privatization of life and maximal waste of energy, it was also undermining the efficient choices that the market doesn't and can't provide. That's another highly destructive built-in market inefficiency. So to put it simply, if I want to get home from work in the evening, the market does allow me a choice between, say, a Ford and a Toyota, but it doesn't allow me a choice between a car and a subway, which would be much more inefficient. And maybe everybody wants it, but the market doesn't allow that choice. That's a social decision. And in a democratic society, it would be the decision of an organized public. But that's just what the elite attack on democracy seeks to undermine. Now, these consequences are right before our eyes in ways that are sometimes surreal. A couple of weeks ago, the Wall Street Journal had an article reporting that the U.S. transportation chief is in Spain. He's meeting with high-speed rail suppliers. Europe's engineering and rail companies are lining up for some potentially lucrative U.S. contracts for high-speed rail projects. At stake is $13 billion in stimulus funds that the Obama administration is allocating to upgrade existing rail lines and build new ones that would one day rival Europe's. So think what's happening. Spain and other European countries are hoping to get U.S. taxpayer funding for high-speed rail and related infrastructure. And at the very same time, Washington is busy dismantling leading sectors of U.S. industry, ruining the lives of workers and communities who could easily do it themselves. It's pretty hard to conjure up a more damning indictment of the economic system that's been constructed by state corporate managers. Surely the auto industry could be reconstructed to produce what the country needs using its highly skilled workforce. But that's not even on the agenda. It's not even being discussed. Rather, we'll go to Spain and we'll give them taxpayer money for them to do it while we destroy the capacity to do it here. It's been done before. So during World War II, it was kind of a semi-command economy, government-organized economy. That's what happened. Industry was reconstructed for the purpose of war dramatically. It not only ended the Depression, but it initiated the most spectacular period of growth in economic history. In 4 years, U.S. industrial production just about quadrupled, and that as the economy was retooled for war, and that laid the basis for the golden age that followed. Well, warnings about the purposeful destruction of U.S. productive capacity have been familiar for decades, maybe most prominently by the late Seymour Melman, who many of us knew well. But Melman was also one of those who pointed the way to a sensible way to reverse the process. This state corporate leadership, of course, has other commitments, but there's no reason for passivity on the part of the public, the so-called stakeholders, workers, and community. I mean, with enough popular support, they could just take over the plants and carry out the task of restoring the It's not a very exotic proposal. One of the standard texts on corporations in economics literature points out that nowhere is it written in stone that the short-term interests of corporate shareholders in the United States in the United States deserve a higher priority than all other corporate stakeholders, workers and community. It's a state corporate decision. It has nothing to do with economic theory. It's also important to remind ourselves that the notion of workers' control is as American as apple pie. Kind of impressed. I was there in the early days of the Industrial Revolution in New England. Working people just took it for granted that those who work in the mills should own them. And they also regarded wage labor as different from slavery, only in that it was temporary. And also Abraham Lincoln's view. There have been immense efforts to drive these thoughts out of people's heads to win what the business world calls the everlasting battle for the minds of men. On the surface, they may appear to have succeeded, but I don't think you have to dig too deeply to find out that they're latent and they can be revived. And there have been some important concrete efforts. One of them was undertaken 30 years ago in Youngstown, Ohio, where U.S. Steel was going to shut down a major facility that was at the heart of this steel town. And there were substantial protests by the workforce and by the community. Then there was an effort led by Stoughton Lind to bring to the courts the principle that stakeholders should have the highest priority. Well, the effort failed that time, but with enough popular support, it could succeed. And right now is a propitious time to revive such efforts, although it would be necessary, and we have to do this, to overcome the effects of this concentrated campaign to drive our own history and culture out of our minds. There was a very dramatic illustration of the success of this campaign just a few months ago. In February, President Obama decided to show his solidarity with working people. He went to Illinois to give a talk at a factory. The factory he chose was the Caterpillar Corporation. Now that was over the strong objections of church groups, peace groups, human rights groups, who were protesting